It seems we're heading straight for a storm. In some dioceses, the decisions taken are breathtaking and alarming to the faithful. A bishop has just made a choice that could mark the point of no return, and the faithful must know what is happening. Stay with us. LifeSite News reports news that profoundly shakes the American Catholic community and cannot leave indifferent those who hold tradition dear. In Detroit, a historic stronghold of Catholicism in the United States, Archbishop Edward Weisenberger has undertaken a series of swift and radical actions that mark a further step toward the systematic demolition of what remains of the faith of all time. These are not simply administrative decisions. Their scope is such that they strike at the heart of the liturgical life, priestly formation, and even the doctrinal fidelity of the archdiocese. The news, already serious in itself, takes on an even more disturbing significance when one considers that these measures come at a time of profound crisis for the Church, where concessions to the world seem to multiply while calls for correct doctrine are systematically silenced. The Diocese of Detroit was once a thriving, close-knit community, deeply devoted to the traditional Mass. The churches were packed with faithful of all ages. The parishes lived to a rhythm marked by the liturgical calendar of all times, and the sacredness of the liturgy constituted the pulsating center of city life. In those naves, one could breathe a sense of continuity with past centuries, a concrete and lived fidelity that united families, religious figures, and priests in the same sacred language and in the same rites handed down by the Church for generations. The arrival of Archbishop Edward Weisenberger marked an abrupt and painful turning point for many faithful. Appointed in Detroit as one of Pope Francis's last official acts, he was installed on March 18, 2025. Just a month later, he signaled a profound change. With a clear and irrevocable decree, he imposed that the traditional Latin Mass could no longer be celebrated in the Archdiocese's parishes after July 1st. It was not a question of exceptions or derogations, but of a systematic cancellation. All previously granted permissions were made null and void, in full compliance with the provisions of Traditionis Custodes and its subsequent Vatican clarification of 2023, according to which only the Holy See can authorize the celebration of the extraordinary form in parish places. Now, however, the rite can only be practiced in 4 non-parish locations. A few days later, again with a swift and severe decision, Weisenberger proceeded to dismiss 3 illustrious professors of the Sacred Heart Seminary, Professor Ralph Martin, Dr. Eduardo Echeverria, and the canonist Edward Peters. Prominent figures in priestly formation are known for their commitment to maintaining fidelity to traditional doctrine. They were ousted for vague reasons and apparently without any conciliatory steps. Today comes news that is even more disconcerting and casts a new shadow over the already delicate situation of the Archdiocese. If you appreciate our outreach service and believe in the values of truth and transparency, please purchase a super thank you. Each piece of content requires commitment, study, and dedication, and our work is entirely self-funded. Your support helps us continue this mission. Thank you so much. Archbishop Weisenberger has in fact chosen as his new ombudsman Father David Boersmeyer, a priest whose name has long been associated with questionable positions and direct relations with the Association of Catholic Priests of the United States, AUSCP, a group sadly known for promoting instances openly contrary to Catholic doctrine. This organization has never hidden its commitment to introducing radical changes in the Church, female ordinations, lay-led parishes, full recognition of divergent unions, and the routine use of general absolution in place of individual confession. It is precisely on this last point that Buersmeyer played an active role, participating in the drafting of a text that asked the American bishops to expand the use of the so-called Rite 3 of the sacrament of penance, provided for by church law only in cases of grave emergency, a vision that, if applied, not only contradicts Catholic sacramental practice, but also opens the way to that same idea of parishes without priests, so dear to progressive circles. The official task of this figure now would be to offer a neutral space for mediation in relations between the clergy and curia staff. But Buersmeyer's history and positions raise serious doubts. It's not just controversial theological opinions. Documents attest that he publicly supported priests punished for participating in female ordinations, and that for years he continuously funded an association that promoted heterodox theories on liturgy, morality, and priestly ministry. At a time when the Archdiocese is already shaken by the suppression of the traditional Mass and the removal of 3 teachers faithful to the magisterium, this appointment appears to many faithful as a further step toward a project of radical and ideologically oriented transformation of the local church. In light of all this, the appointment of Father Buersmeyer appears not as a neutral internal management choice, but as an act consistent with a precise program to normalize ideas and practices that until a few years ago would have been recognized as dangerous doctrinal deviations. At a time when the Church needs humble and courageous pastors willing to guard the depositum fidei and resist ideological fashions, we instead find ourselves faced with a management that is more reminiscent of the administration of a company ready to change its brand than of the care of a flock. Christ warned his apostles not to behave like the powerful of this world, and St. Peter recommended that pastors serve and not dominate. But in Detroit today, these words seem to have been shelved, while a further wound opens in the already suffering body of the Church. In all of this, the figure of Pope Leo XIV appears increasingly immersed in a dense and complex web of pressures, expectations, and underground maneuvers. The Detroit case then becomes an emblematic test, a litmus test of the direction his pontificate intends to take. Each day that passes without clear intervention reinforces the idea that forces hostile to the faith are moving rapidly, while the faithful remain waiting for a signal that says, with the strength of true shepherds, the Church will not bend. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment, Amen. God bless you.